Hello and welcome. It's Sunday night. It's the Football Hipsters podcast. It's the English breakfast back again. I am your host, Chris, and as usual, I'm joined by my footballing sparring partner. It's Mr. Ross Bramble. Good evening, Ross.
Good evening, sir.
I imagine we're both quite happy this week, aren't we? Happy 3-0 to you.
Happy 3-0 to you too.
Thank you. Splendid. That's just alienated all the West Ham and Chelsea fans we've got listening to. All three of them are just turned off right now. Anyway, we're here as usual, Ross, to go through the weekend's English football action. Obviously, we'll have your EFL roundup as well. So I know that's a very popular feature. A lot of people have commented on the fact that they really like the fact we cover Championship and below. So props to you. I'm doffing my cap. Excuse me.
Well, you're going to love me today because I got a little bit of conference to do as well.
Oh, beautiful. And I'm even going to manage to crowbar a bit of European action in. I'm sure you know where I'm going with that later on.
I was going to anyway. So.
Good times. Hashtag Burkwatch. Right, let's jump straight in then, because we're going to try and do a slightly condensed show this week. So listeners, if you're listening in, if you prefer this version, do let us know. Right, let's jump in then, Ross. We're going to start back to front today, actually. We're going to start with your boys, because I've got quite a lot to say about West Ham. Final score from the London Arena Bowl Tesco thing. What is it called? London Stadium. That's what it's called, isn't it? I believe. Technically. West Ham United 0, Southampton 3. Now, we'll obviously talk about your boys in a second. Don't worry, I will give you opportunity. But West Ham, this is, I personally think now we are past the stage of it's a bit of a blip. I think this is starting to become a full-on crisis now. They can't win at home. They can't win away. They're shipping an average of 2.5 goals a game. I mean, what has gone wrong? Is it as simple as the fact that Bilic didn't get the players he wanted? Or maybe did we overrate Bilic? Is it the stadium? And what do you think's going wrong?
Well, they didn't get in the quality they wanted, because we all know they were after Batshuayi and they were after Lacazette, and they ended up with Simeone Zaza, who hasn't been brilliant. I've got to finally see him for 90 minutes today, watching the game, and he looks to me like a player that's used to having the ball put to him rather than having to work for it and tracking back. You know, I think the transition from Juventus to West Ham is a bit trickier for him than it might otherwise have been. So I kind of understand why he's faltering a bit, but that doesn't really excuse the fact that he isn't getting the ball, he isn't getting the service, he isn't getting the opportunities. Don't think it's as easy to say it's the stadium. It was a very, very mellow atmosphere, and the boos at full time would have been a lot louder if there'd been people there, but everyone started leaving after about, 70, 75 minutes. There's a lot of issues with West Ham. I know I'll get slated for it because I got slated for it when I said it last year, but I don't think Bilic is a better manager than Sam Allardyce in terms of quality and the kind of position he'll get you in the league. I just think he's a more attacking manager than Sam Allardyce. You know, I think the thing that masks how much better Bilic is or Allardyce is just how much more entertaining Bilic's sides are to watch. I don't think there's too much separating Bilic from Allardyce except for the style of play and how many goals they get. So I never thought that they'd got a better manager. I thought they just got a manager that could entertain the crowd a bit more. And that's great if it works, and it did last season. And I'm still in the camp that it'll work again this season. I think he is a damn good manager. I think they do have some damn good players. It's just not clicking for whatever reason early doors. But no, I've never been of the opinion that Bilic is a world beater, but I certainly think he's better than West Ham are showing him so far.
I think you're bang on there, actually. I think about the Allardyce thing. I think he's Bilic is, like you say, he's playing the quote unquote West Ham way, but that isn't yielding results at the moment. What do you think it's going to take to change this? I mean, is this run as simple as what Stoke are going through? We'll touch on them in a minute. Is it as simple as you get a result, the ball goes in off someone's arse and everything's right again? Because you could argue that happened against Accrington in midweek. They had to wait to the 97th minute to win it, and they did win it. And you thought, oh, maybe that's a corner turned, but then back to today, and it's all the same flaws. So, is it as simple as a result going their way, or is it a bit deeper than that?
If it's a Premier League result, it might do. But but I've never really bought into the idea that one game changes everything, because I remember back when we had that awful run over Christmas, we still managed to beat your guys on Boxing Day or whenever it was, and then we still went on and lost the next 4 or didn't win in the next 4. You know, it's great when a result comes along and you're in the middle of a slump, but you've got to carry it on. And that win over Accrington wasn't fantastic. It wasn't the most convincing, and they did have to wait for it late on. But it still should have been something, you know. It still should have given them a bit of a belief, given the crowd a bit of a lift, or given them a bit more belief going into this game. But it just didn't. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's a one good result in the Premier League kind of deal. But they need to get their heads down. They need to knuckle down. The thing I would say though is that if they've tried to play it simpler, which it looked like they were today, because it did look very one-dimensional, and just do the simple things right, that hasn't worked either. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what the answer is. I know a lot of West Ham fans are calling for a lot of the youth players, Oxford and the like, to come back in, and the young striker they bought off Man United, Ashley Fletcher, I think his name is. They're after those kind of players back in. I don't know if that's going to do it. I think that's a very simple fan fix myself. But there's options for West Ham, but they obviously need to address this quickly, because the longer it goes on, as we all know in football, momentum is a huge thing. And if they're still there in mid-November, then you never know.
Yeah, agreed. That match where they've got next week, Middlesbrough at home, that's I think that's massive, absolutely massive. Lose that, I think there really will be alarm bells ringing. But we will, of course, be across that next week. Let's touch on your boys, though. It has to be said, good away performance. Charlie Austin is banging them in all of a sudden. Is it 3 in his last 3 or 4 in 3 now?
4 and 5, I think. No, 5 and 4, because he got 2 in Sport Prague, didn't he?
Of course he did, yeah, of course he did. So I mean, he's obviously he's taken his chance. Fair play to him. He's come in, and for a man who apparently has no knees. I wonder if that was I'm sure he would have loved that, scoring against a team that refused to sign him on fitness grounds. But his goal, James Ward-Prowse's, to wrap up the game, was also a beauty. But I thought Dusan Tadic's footwork for that second goal, just that little shift away from Adrian, I thought that was just delightful. And he is a heck of a player, isn't he? It's fair to say. Do you think he's the next one to be shunted off to Liverpool, or because that seems to be what happens with Southampton players? I hope not for your sake, but
Liverpool haven't got room for him. I don't know. Tadic strikes me as much like a Mesut Ozil. When he's doing it well, everyone loves him, and it's like, oh, we should go inside him, and then he suddenly switches off for a couple of games, and you don't see him, and then no one in the world's interested in him. He does do a very good job. He's a very important part in the Puel system. But I don't know. The rumour over the summer was that Schalke were interested, and he wouldn't have gone there, because that's in my opinion, at least, that's a sideways step. I know they've got a bit more chance of getting Champions League in the Bundesliga than we might do here, but I still think that's a sideways career move. So I don't know is your answer. If he keeps this up and has an absolutely storming season in terms of goals and assists, then maybe. But I'm not sure how many teams in the Premier League have room for him, to be honest.
No, I think that's a very fair point. Overall, I presume you're happy with a 3-0 victory, but Big Claude seemed to enjoy it, didn't he, Claude Puel, today? I guess overall you've had a pretty good week. Well,
we've had a pretty good 10 days. That's 4 wins, 4 clean sheets, 3 different defences in that time. Every team sheet is different, and that's so interesting to see. 4 very good, dominant wins. Don't think West Ham really created too much, except for the one that Van Dijk cleared off the line. I don't remember really being too worried about any of our opponents in the last 4 games. So if this is, the reason we practiced that diamond for the first few games, and the reason we're sticking with it, if these are the kind of performances and results we're going to get, I'm going to be delighted, because I haven't had a heart attack the last couple of weeks, except for Arsenal. So yeah, it's a lot nicer. It's amazing how quickly the feeling in the Southampton fan base has changed after the last 10 days. It's almost like the first couple of weeks never happened. So, brilliant result, but very testing week, away to Israel on Thursday and then away to Leicester next Sunday. So, very big week coming up.
Yeah, toughy, but good stuff. I'm pleased, and of course, you haven't even seen the man, the myth, the legend, Sofiane Boufal yet. So time will come, and you will unleash the boof. But let's switch gears again then, and let's talk about the Saturday action. I want to start with the early game, which saw Manchester United blow away Leicester, 4-1. United 4 up in 42 minutes. Even Paul Pogba got a goal this time, which says how bad Leicester were. I kid, of course, but. United turned up with a bit of a point to prove. No Wayne Rooney, left on the bench. I thought they were pretty clinical, pretty sharp at the top end. But how much was it that United were brilliant, and how much of it was that Leicester had probably the worst half of football they've had in 2 years?
I don't mean to discredit Man United, but I think it was that Leicester were just absolutely awful. Not even particularly in the way they played, but they conceded 3 goals from corners in that game. You know, that's just tactically not being aware. That's just switching off. You take out those 3 set pieces, and it's still only 1-0. And yes, Man United had a lot of decent chances in that game, but it still wouldn't have been as bad, you know. So you've got to give credit to Man United for being brilliant and taking their chances, but 3 goals coming from corners, to me, that says there was a much bigger issue with Leicester.
Yeah, they got the goal of the game as well, didn't they? That Damari Gray strike was a real wafter. That was a beauty. But yeah, do you think about the Man United project? I mean, obviously, you know, a 4-1 win. They sit 6th in the table. They've arrested the sort of mini slump they had of 3 straight defeats in all competitions. They still look to me like a side that I can't make up my mind. One minute I see them and I think, yeah, there's a lot of potential there and they could be up there with the top. And then I see them at other weeks, I think, ooh, I'm not sure. And of course, you've had all this Mourinho talk about, you know, calling out his players, etc. Are you convinced, or do you still think that there's a bit of a mess coming at the end of this?
Well, I'm no football Einstein, but I think it's just a problem with the starting 11.
See what you've done there.
I know. I just don't think that Mourinho has got his best 11 down yet. I think that's the only problem that they've had, really. When they are playing, they play very, very well, and they do look very imposing. But there are times where they've been a bit lacklustre because the balance hasn't been right. And we talked about it last week. You know, do you drop Ibrahimovic? Do you drop Rooney? I don't think either of them can be dropped. But if you had to drop one, it would be Rooney. They did drop Rooney. I'm not saying the win was all down to that because 3 goals from corners would have had nothing to do with if Wayne Rooney was on the field or not. But they certainly looked a bit more balanced in the starting 11. So I think the defence still needs to be a bit more settled because why Daley Blind is getting in at left back over Luke Shaw, I don't know. I know Luke had a bad game last week according to Mourinho, but I still think you play him. I still think you give him the chance to correct it. So, but as far as I'm concerned, they just need to settle into a bit of a rhythm and get their starting 11 a bit more fluid and a bit more, or get a bit more chemistry in it, and then they'll be all right. But yeah, what do I know?
As much as me, and you know that's open to debate from all, I'm sure. But no, I think you're spot on. I just don't know with United. I don't know. If you're a United fan, let us know. What do you think of your team currently? Let's have a look at another team that are very quietly going about their business, but in quite a heavy metal way. I speak, of course, of Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. Now, again, how much of this was down to how good Liverpool were? How much was it down to how bad a day at the office Hull had? But a 5-1 victory. Yet another player dismissed for Hull, I believe, for the same offence. Mohamedi, was it handball again? I think it was. So they've obviously got a good set of keepers there. That was in the 29th minute. The score was 1-0 at the time. Obviously, Milner scores the penalty. Mane, Coutinho and Milner again for another penalty, making it 5-1 in the end with David Milner's goal, kind of separating the Liverpool strikes. What do you think of Liverpool based on what you've seen? And again, do we put this result down to Hull? You know, red card. It changed the game last week. It's changed the game this week. Where do you see this game?
I think red cards help Liverpool a lot more than they do other teams because of the sheer amount of bodies they put forward and how quickly they move and change. So I do think the 5-1 I think is down to the red. I think Hull have already proved this season they're a lot more compact than they showed against Liverpool, and when they have 11 against 11 they can be much harder to break down. But you know, it's ifs, ands, buts and maybes really, because that Liverpool side is good enough to put 5 goals past anyone. It's just, again, as we keep saying every week, is the defence good enough to keep out 4, you know, or keep out 6 or whatever. So yeah, I think it did help that they had the man sent off. I think it did create more space, and honestly, it could have been more than the 5. But I don't read too much into this. I think if you'd said to anyone Liverpool won 5-1 over Hull when they had a man sent off, they would have said, "Oh yeah, that sounds about right." So I don't read too much into it. I know there's a lot of talk this week about them maybe being title contenders. I still don't think this result, you know, makes that any more or less likely. They'll pick up a few more of these over the course of the season. But yeah, I think for both teams, it's just a case of getting on to the next one. You know, Liverpool got exactly what they needed, and Hull wouldn't have expected too many points from it. It's a shame they got battered as badly as they did, but they just have to roll their sleeves up and try and get points from the next one.
Yeah, agreed. I can't help but think that the Terry Phelan, is it Terry Phelan? It is Terry
Mike.
Phelan. Mike Phelan, sorry, Terry Phelan used to play for Man City, didn't he, all those years ago? Showing my age there. Yes, Mike Phelan. I can't help but think that the uncertainty about whether he will or won't can't help. You know what I mean? I know it's two results that have been as a result of handballs and lots of things going on, but I just feel they need that. That stability of knowing, right, he is the gaffer or he's not. That can't help. And,
Oh, there's clearly a reason he's stalling. Whether that's
yes.
contracts or whether that's the amount of money on the table or whether that's just he's not confident of keeping this side up, because this is going to be his first Premier League job. If he takes it, he needs to make sure it's a success so he can go on to another one at some point. If he takes it and gets relegated, it changes your outlook on who he is. So it's a big decision for him. Hopefully it gets resolved soon, but if he leaves, then I like Hull's chances even less.
Yeah, agreed. If of course, has he even officially been offered it? I don't know whether
he said in his interview that he's been offered it, but he's still mulling it over. Apparently, they were going to talk about it this week on Monday, Tuesday kind of time, but I haven't heard anything about it since. So there's clearly some more negotiations going on.
And the fact that, of course, that Steve Bruce walked out when he had the opportunity to stay on suggests that there is stuff going on there, whatever manager it is. So it'd be one for us to keep an eye on. I do wonder who they'd go for if they didn't get him. I've seen the names linked, but yeah, I don't know. Have to keep an eye on that one. But well done to Liverpool nonetheless. You can only beat what's in front of you, and they did that very nicely. Adam Lallana certainly having a season of his life at the moment. He's scoring goals and providing assists, so fair play to him. Let's have a look at another game. Crystal Palace. Now, there's a couple of points on this game. Sunderland obviously 2-0 up, Jermaine Defoe with a double, and then somehow conspired to lose 3-2. Stoppage time winner from Benteke. Ledley and MacArthur had levelled things up for Palace. Just touch on Palace first of all, because you have a theory on Alan Pardew.
Yeah, I mean, we've said on this pod before now that neither of us particularly rate Alan Pardew, but every single season there's a story going around about maybe he'd be England manager, or he's this good, or he's that good. And I've always been of the belief that Alan Pardew is good when he gets his system down. I've always been a critic of his for not being flexible. I've said it often enough. What does he write in that black book? And I don't always mean that as a joke. I just mean that he doesn't change anything. It's always the same formation. It's the same style. So to prove my point, what I've done is I've gone back through his last two jobs, which were Southampton and Newcastle, and I've picked out the two teams he played with, one in his very last game as Southampton manager, and then two as the Newcastle manager when they beat Chelsea 2-0. You may remember the Papis Cisse dip volley that kind of broke physics.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed.
So if you go back to his last game as Southampton manager, the lineup was Davis in goal, back line of Harding, Font, Martin, Butterfield, Schneiderlin and Hammond holding midfield, Punchin, Barnard, Lallana in attacking midfield, and Ricky Lambert up front. You then go to Newcastle, Tim Krul in goal, Santon, Colaccini, Williamson, Perch in the defence, Cabaye, Tiote in holding, Gutierrez, Cisse, Ben Arfa in attacking midfield, and Demba Ba up front. And now you look at yesterday's lineup against Sunderland. They had Mandanda in goal, Ward, Tompkins, Delaney, Kelly in the back line, Ledley, MacArthur holding, Punching, Cabaye, Townsend in attacking midfield, and then Benteke up front. Now Cabaye is normally further back in the holding role, and Zaha is in the number 10 role. So if you look through that team and you extrapolate all the similarities, the striker is always the same. It's a hold-up player. Lambert, Bar, Benteke. Big, tall, strong in the air, can barge people around, knocks balls down into on-running players, etc. The number 10 role is always someone that can play as a striker. Cisse at Newcastle, Barnard at Southampton, and then Zaha at Palace. So they have the flexibility to go 4-4-2, but they have someone tricky in the hole that can create goals and score them. Then you've got two attacking wingers, you've got two holding midfielders that are good on the ball, very good technically, break up the play, two flying wing-backs, and two solid, experienced centre-backs. That's how he plays. That's his setup. That's always been his setup. And when it goes well, it goes brilliantly. And some point this season, if this starts to really build and they go on a run of 5, 6, 7 unbeaten, you will hear in the media, oh, Alan Pardew is a future England manager. For the record, I do believe that, because he's going to be in the game 15 more years, yeah, at least. So I still think he will get it eventually. Is he good enough for it? I don't know, because like I say, he plays this system. It's always this 4-2-3-1 system. To do that at international level, you can't bring in the players, so you have to adapt the players. I don't think that's his ball game. But the press will get on his back and start saying that he's going to be a future England manager. You'll hear it on Soccer Saturday and on Match of the Day, etc., etc. And it'll all be great. But as soon as it starts to go wrong, it will go wrong spectacularly, because he can't change it. He doesn't know how to change it. And fantastic to see it come off against Sunderland. I think Palace were really helped by the fact that they was zonal marking because they're too afraid of grappling people in the box. I know Stoke got punished by it as well. They decided to zonal mark and they got called out. I think that helped tremendously with Benteke's goal. But it is nice when Pardew gets it going because it is a very effective system. But I don't want to start talking about him as if he's some revolutionary. You can look through his last 2 jobs and probably even further back than that, and you can see the trends. So I don't want to start jumping on a bandwagon. They are doing very well, but this is what Pardew does. It's great when it works, but the wheels will soon come off eventually.
Yeah, that does. Every point you made, there's some good research, and every point you make is bang on. I mean, when you look at the runs he goes on, where he has these runs of being great, and then he just goes missing for a few weeks, and it kind of rings true. It kind of rings true. And again, if you have an opinion on that, do let us know. We'll happily share your thoughts on this pod. But we should also touch on Sunderland. It's the 25th of September. It seems very easy to say, I think they're doomed. But I think they're doomed, Ross. What do you think?
If I was picking my bottom 3 today, they'd be in it. I suspect if I was picking my bottom 3 next week, they'd be in it. But there's still time, and they've still got a January window as well. I think some of these transfers were a bit, there's no one on the market, let's get someone, i.e. Pinar and Ndong. I don't know how well they've been scouting him, but he seemed a bit rushed. So I don't know all the ins and outs of the transfer business. I don't know all the ins and outs of how they're trying to mould them together. I still think that back line on paper looks very good. It's not translated on the pitch just yet. I still think there's potential in them to stay up, but obviously they need to fix some of these problems quickly, and by the looks of things, one of the first things that's got to go is zonal marking.
Yes, I think that is very much what needs to go first, judging by yesterday. Just looking at the next few fixtures, I think it's a massive period of time for them. They have got West Brom at home next week. You would have to say that has to be must win. They've got Stoke the following week. Look at the situation they're in. They've got West Ham the following week after that. And then if you take out the League Cup, they then play home to Arsenal, which, of course, by then, that'll be just before November. So we'll probably be into our November slump by then. So they'll be happy about that. But those next 3 fixtures, I mean, they're huge, aren't they?
I would also say that David Moyes needs to get back in a suit, because that jogging bottoms and sweatshirt thing...
It's not good look, is it?
No, it didn't suit him at all.
No, it's got middle-aged dad written all over it, hasn't it, on the touchline?
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of my old Scottish PE teacher, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, it's not doing him any favours. But, Sunderland are looking a bit rough, and I can't help but wonder if somebody might have a cheeky bid for Jermaine Defoe, because he might be in his 30s, but he still scores goals. He just makes you wonder, doesn't it? But we shall see. We will just briefly touch on the fact that AFC Bournemouth, cracking victory for them, Junior Stanislas with the only goal of the game, beating Everton, and first signs that Everton maybe aren't completely comfortable with life at the top of the Premier League. That's their first defeat of the season. Middlesbrough losing at home to Spurs, a 2-1 victory. Another couple of goals for Heung-min Son there, who was rumored to be pushed out the exit door in the summer, and he's turned that on its head. And Ben Gibson netting me some fantasy football points with a goal back from Middlesbrough, which was nice. But nevertheless, a defeat for Borough, who are sliding down the table a little. So they'll want to get back to winning ways next week. And we should also touch on the fact Swansea City and Manchester City, for the second time in a week, Manchester City beat the Swans. Just briefly on this one, 3-1 victory for Man City. Aguero twice and Raheem Sterling, with Llorente's cracker getting Swansea level at one point. Just quickly on Swansea, Guidolin, do you think there's a bit of pressure all of a sudden? Because there's talk of Ryan Giggs, there's talk of Swansea having sort of crisis talks. It's going all a little bit Gary Monk when he was towards the end of his day. Players reportedly not happy. We had the incident with is it Neil Taylor last week getting subbed?
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't seem like a completely happy camp. Is this again just a case of a couple of results and it'll all be all right again, or do you think Guidolin might be back off to Italy before we know it?
I didn't agree with his. What was it? End of last season, they gave him a new deal.
Yeah, he came in and got a few results, kept them safe, and then the new deal was presented to him.
I didn't see it then. I don't understand why they kept him. I don't think that he's a manager that's not exactly cut out. I suppose I don't think he's cut out for the Premier League. I don't see it in him. I think he's he strikes me as a very nice guy. But I don't see him instilling a sense of competition. I don't see him as a great motivator. His tactics may be fantastic. They've not worked so far this season. I didn't think they were overly special when he came in last season. I never really got it. He seemed like a cheap option to me from Swansea. But I haven't got it since day one. I still don't get it now. It doesn't surprise me they're in the situation they're in, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him go. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me to see him stay on for a couple more months and the board at Swansea to see if he can fix it. Because it seems like that's what he's in there for. He just seems a middleman option. He doesn't feel like the manager of Swansea to me. He just feels like he's there while they find their next manager. So I haven't been impressed with him since day one, personally. I should also say on this point, though, that I really enjoyed this Man City game. I thought it was far more interesting, far more entertaining. Swansea gave them a much better challenge than I thought they would. Man City were not as composed on the ball. It means they gave it away a bit more, made it a lot more competitive. Great first half. The next 20 minutes of the second half was quite good until Man City really started to get control. But a lot more competitive, a lot more interesting to watch. And I think, honestly, that 3-1 is a bit harsh on Swansea. But overall, no, I think Guilin's on a clock. But whether it'll be Giggs or not, I don't know, because that's a very tough job to walk into in your first managerial job.
Yeah, I agree with that. Not convinced Giggs would do much differently, if at all, but you just never know, do you? And there you are, folks. It's proof that Ross does like Man City games occasionally. So, yeah, rein it in. I agree with you there. I think you make some excellent points. And, Manchester City just roll on. At the moment, they look pretty unstoppable, has to be said. I think their next big test is probably going to come next weekend, actually. They're away at Spurs in the 2:15 kickoff on Sunday, so be interested to see how they go at that one, because Spurs were decent on their own patch, and even without Kane, I think they will represent at least a bit of a threat to Man City going the other way. So we'll of course be across that this time next week. We will now have a look at the final game of our roundup. Second to final game. We've got two left. Stoke and West Brom. Just another brief one on this one. Tony Pulis, I think we should give him a little bit of a nod. Not everyone is a fan. I'm not a huge fan, but I thought he spoke very well on Football Focus in the UK here. It's his 1,000th game. Whether you like him or you don't, whether you like his tactic or his style or not, he's a real lifer, and I think it's fair to say, he deserves credit, whether you like it or not. A 1-1 draw, it might feel a bit hollow for him, though, mightn't it? Last minute equaliser for West Brom, but he would have probably thought we could go to Stoke and win this game, and obviously they didn't. So, who is the point better for? And anything you want to add on Pulis?
I love Pulis, so that's all I have to say. I think he's a lot better tactically than we give him credit for. I just think he's kind of been thrown into this category where, after Stoke City, where he's the kind of manager that keeps you up and he plays this kind of style. And I don't think that's always that fair. I think if he was given a job higher in the league, then he would adapt his tactics, and he's always been touted as a coach that was very forward-thinking and was well ahead of his time. So I'm a big fan of his. I love what he does. It's just a shame he kind of gets branded with this tag of being boring. But for the game, probably a bigger point for West Brom, considering the position they were in on 90 minutes. Hugely disappointing for Pulis, though, that they've only drawn that 1-1, because I think he would have been working all week long on set pieces. He would have known that they were not good in the air, they were not good defending set pieces, they were going to be too worried about giving away penalties, so let's get it in high, let's find someone, and they only managed to get one in the back of the net. So I think Pulis would be a bit disappointed that they didn't take more from that game, but good result for Stoke. Obviously could have been better. It will feel like a defeat having lost it so late, but at the same time, it's another point closer. It's all about the little gains when you're in the position Stoke are in, so a good point for them, but I think contextually probably a better point for West Brom.
Yeah, agreed. And definitely still troubled times for Mark Hughes and Stoke. And again, as we touched on it, that game for them next weekend, I think that is going to be a bit of a barnstorm. And the pressure will be on for Stoke. This run can't carry on forever at the end of the day. And they need to get results. And they are away at Manchester United, next weekend.
I've always believed that you have the first two international breaks to kind of steady the ship and get yourself in order. If they go into it on a bit of a wobble, I won't be too concerned because it'll matter what happens after. But if they come back from that second break and it's still wobbly, then I'll be more concerned about Stoke.
Yeah, wobbly. And I think they just need to get some goals, don't they? They just need to start being a threat going the other way, because I think defensively you can't be good at defence and then all of a sudden be rubbish. You're either good or you're not. You go through bad spells, but if you're well set up and tactically equipped, you just need to start scoring goals. And I think that's what Stoke need. But speaking of scoring
earlier, sorry to interrupt
yes,
there.
No, go for it.
On your point earlier, if Sunderland are still in the position they're in come January, Stoke I think will be one of the ones in for Defoe.
Yes, good shout. Or, of course, Saido Berahino again. That'll be another
He'll
ongoing.
never leave West Brom.
No, I think you're probably right. He's one of those players I think would actually do quite well if he went abroad. He won't, but
He's one of those players that would do well if he shut up and got on with his football, frankly.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. Can't argue with that at all. Right, let's move on to a final game then. And speaking of goals, Arsenal had a lovely old weekend, didn't they? Basically, just taking Chelsea apart. I mean, I said last week that I fancied this might be the game that Arsenal finally break this hood over Chelsea. I fancied us to really go at Conte's tactics, and I thought it would be a decent opportunity to get a result. Even I didn't foresee a 3-0 battering, really. I mean, it could have been 6 or 7. I think it's my only tinge of disappointment in that we didn't revenge that 6-0 loss from a few years back. But I think it's safe to say Arsene Wenger's approaching his 20th year anniversary. I think it's safe to say he'll have enjoyed this one more than his 1,000th game at Stamford Bridge when we lost 6-0. So what did you make of Arsenal? And also, what did you make of Chelsea? Because they fell like a house of cards, didn't they?
Yeah, it's the back line. And when the season previews were being done, I think we both agreed Chelsea would be our picks for the title, because I think we both agreed that Conte would get that defence fixed, and the only thing that would be able to stop Man City was going to be Conte's Chelsea if he could fix that back line. And then it seemed to be going all right until they brought David Luiz back in, and you could arguably say that Cahill and David Luiz is the worst defensive partnership Chelsea have had since Cahill and David Luiz. So it's very, very tricky for Chelsea. They just need to work on it tactically. But for me, it's David Luiz that's the problem. If they had just kept Terry in, or even put Zuma back in, I'm not sure on Zuma's injury state. I know Terry's currently on crutches, but if they just had a different centre back, I think I would have fancied them a lot more against Arsenal. It's just that defensive side. I think they just need to fix that. And David Luiz, since he's come back in against Liverpool and against Arsenal, I don't think that's coincidence. Arsenal, that's champagne football. That's why we love Arsenal. That's why we love Arsene Wenger. That's why so many neutrals are Arsenal fans. That's what we remember from 10 years ago. That's what Arsenal fans want to see every week. But unfortunately, the modern game is such that you can't get that every week. But great to do it against Chelsea, I can only imagine, for Arsenal fans.
Yes, very happy, very happy. It's to be honest, since the start of the season and that reverse against Liverpool, Arsenal have been pretty good overall and have got results. And it's nice to see some players stepping up. I think your man Theo Walcott I think something's gone off in his head, and he's realised he needs to work harder. And
I think it was the Euros.
Yes, I think you might be right. Yeah, and he's providing a real.
Not even getting in the provisional. I think probably would have just pissed him off more than Nathan and said, right, we need to fix this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the acceptance that he is a wide man, not a centre forward, I think is finally clicked in as well. And he's been excellent. I think the Mustafi-Koscielny partnership is showing real signs of being potentially one of the best in the league if things continue the way they are. Bellerin and Monreal were back to the best yesterday.
Oh, that Bellerin tackle.
Oh, superb.
When Pedro was going, what a tackle that was.
The pace, honestly, it was like a young carpenter racing back there. It was, well, maybe not. I wasn't ever that quick, but no, it was absolutely fantastic, wasn't it? To not just the pace, but when you're going at that speed, it's very difficult to then stop and not give away a foul. Just go through.
Difficult to know when to stop as well. It's not all about just here I am. You've got to know you're in a position that's far enough ahead to make sure that when you slide in, you will get that ball. There's no chance of you getting that player. So to make up that ground and then to know it was, you know how much I love defending and tackling. That was beautiful to see.
Superb, yeah, and absolutely. I think it's and Pedro's no slouch either. It was very, very good. But superb victory for Arsenal, and I'm a happy man. So that's good for me. Good for me. Right, before we leave the Premier League alone for another week, we will give you the table this week because we're finally getting to the stage where we can start to give you a bit of a table and it's starting to look a bit more point orientated. So you've got Manchester City out there in front, 4 points clear on 18 points at the top, 4 points clear of Spurs. Makes you feel rough, that. 14 points in their 6 games played. Arsenal just behind on 13, along with Liverpool and Everton on the same points in 4th and 5th respectively. Manchester United back up to 6 on 12 points. Palace, Chelsea, Southampton and West Brom make up the top 10. Down at the bottom, Sunderland only 1 point for their 6 games with a goal difference of -7, not good. Stokes not as good, -11 goal difference. They've only got 2 points, second bottom. West Ham falling like a stone, 4th straight defeat in the Premier League, 3 points in 18th, and then Burnley, Swansea, Middlesbrough, Bournemouth just above the drop zone, with Hull, Leicester and Watford just above them. And of course we do have a Monday game this week where things could change. Sean Dyche's Burnley host Walter Matsari's Watford, who have recently been on the upturn. Watford, and I believe with a victory they could go as high as 7th. So very, very good turnaround for Watford, and that might be worth a watch. So tune in for that. We will just have a look at next week's fixtures as well, Ross. So we've got what have we got? We've got Everton Palace is the Friday night football. Yes, that's back again. Happy days. Yeah, Everton Palace, Pardew and Koeman, your 2 favourite managers. That'll be fun. Swansea host Liverpool on Saturday at 12:30. That's a game I'm going to keep an eye on, because that's exactly the sort of game where if Liverpool are the real deal, they need to go to Swansea and win, isn't it?
Liverpool should get Guidlin sacked next week. I think they really should.
This is the game where they have to show their mettle and prove they can do it against the small sides away from home. Hull City entertain Chelsea. You've got to think that Hull will want to try and take advantage of Chelsea's slump at the moment. Sunderland West Brom, that huge game at the bottom end. Watford host Bournemouth. West Ham Middlesbrough, another huge game at the bottom. That's the Saturday games, and because of Europa League in midweek, we've got 4 Sunday games next week. Manchester United Stoke 12 o'clock. Leicester Southampton 2:15, as you mentioned, Ross, at the same time as Spurs Man City. And Burnley Arsenal is the 4:30 game on the Sunday. So much to discuss for us next week as far as the Premier League goes. But we will leave it behind for another week, and we'll transition across to your EFL Roundup. So from Championship to League 2, with a little bit of Burke Watch thrown in. What's been happening this weekend, Ross?
Well, we're going to start even lower this week. We're going to do a quick little shout out to the National League, because I know a little bit about the National League because I live in Southampton. My local team is Eastleigh from the conference, so I do keep an eye on them. They're now managed by the always wonderful Ronnie Moore. He's gone in and absolutely changed them. They are now 6th in the national. I keep wanting to say the conference. It's the National League. They're now up to 6th. If you didn't know, it's the top 5 that are the playoff and promotion places. The top 1 obviously goes up as champion, and then you've got spaces from 2 to 5 open for playoffs. So Eastleigh now 6th, joint on points with Lincoln, who are 5th, which is a great turnaround for Eastleigh. And another shout out has to go to Barrow, who were not expected to do a great deal in terms of the promotion charge this season, up to 3rd, which is just the most fantastic thing. I have a very good friend who supports Barrow, goes to see them home and away, and he is absolutely loving life. Only 2 defeats, 7 wins, which is a huge turnaround from last season. The other reason I really wanted to mention the National League this week, was because one of my favourite managers of all time, he has a very, very deep, loving spot in my heart. That's Nigel Adkins. Could be on his way to Tranmere Rovers, who are currently 4th. If that happens, that is blockbuster for the National League. But I also think it says a lot about the structure of Southampton and the quality of Nigel Adkins' management thereafter, if he ends up there. But that could be a huge story if Tranmere get that one over the line. But at the moment, that is only rumours. So let's get back to the EFL, shall we? League 2. Now, League 2, I don't see too many results. I didn't see too many results that really jump off the page at me from League 2. I think one of the most interesting ones was Luton Town getting 3-1 over Doncaster Rovers, and Doncaster have been on quite a good run. They're 4th in League 2, which surprises me a lot because I'm not a big fan of Darren Ferguson. But they go a 3-1 away defeat to Luton, which is a great result for Luton, puts them back up to 3rd. And also Portsmouth winning 5-1 at home to Barnet. They went a goal down, and the locals were not happy, but stormed back to win that 5-2. Yeovil Town as well, 4 goals for Yeovil, which I think now takes them up to 19th, so they are quite a good distance away from the bottom 2 now, but you'd still expect them to sink back there eventually because they are having a bit of a tough time. So outside of that, I don't see too many to shout about from League 2. Obviously, we should give a little nod to Plymouth, who got a 1-1 draw with Hartlepool. I think it was an 85th minute penalty, if I'm right, which keeps them top. So a good start for Plymouth.
And they were awful, apparently. My mate tells me they were awful.
I hear that Hartlepool were a bit unfortunate, but there you go. It's the mark of champions and all that. You still get a point from games you're not very good in. So, yeah, like I keep saying, I'd love to see Plymouth come back up the league. Not just because Chris is there and lives local, but I've always thought of them as a championship team. So, it'd be great to see them come back up. So that's League Two, a bit more of a brief look than we would normally give, but I also move up to League One. League One, again, not too many shocking results. I think Bradford City's 0-0 draw with Bolton deserves a mention. Bradford, again, absolutely fantastic. They've got a great defensive record in the past couple of games, but that's now 5 draws on the bounce for Bradford. Good result against Bolton, who have started very well in League One, but still very strange. I think they're the only team in League One that haven't lost a game yet because they've drawn 6 or something games. So interesting start for Bradford. Outside of that, maybe we pick out Gillingham beating Coventry 2-1. You know, Coventry have just had the most rotten start, and it seems like every single season we say Coventry are going to be up there, and then they just absolutely tank it. They're starting to remind me a little bit of Sheffield United, who as soon as they went down, we all thought, oh, they'll come straight back up, and then every season they suffered. But still no wins in 9 for Coventry, currently managed by Tony Mowbray. So tough times ahead for them, but it's a really, really horrific start for a team that would have expected to be higher. Charlton Athletic still stuttering. That's a 1-1 draw they got this week. That puts them down to 16th. Good point for Oxford in that game, but you know, if you're Charlton, you still want to be winning that. Doesn't seem to be clicking for Russell Slade just yet. I think he's got enough about him to get Charlton up and out of that division, but certainly not working early doors. And then Millwall losing 2-3 to Rochdale, I think, is another good one to point out. Millwall is a big club in League One, and they've had a bit of a mixed start, 3-3-3 for their wins, draws and losses, but that will be one that kind of shakes them a little bit to lose 3-2 to Rochdale. So big win for that for Rochdale there. So away from League One, we're now back to my baby, the Championship. You had a Friday night game, which was the local derby between Preston and Wigan. Preston winning that 1-0 wasn't the best game in the world. Kind of glad my internet wasn't doing great things for me that night, because I did manage to miss what sounds like a bit of an attritional game. But a goal deflected in off of Hugill, I believe, gave Preston a 1-0 lead. And like I say, every week in the Championship, you can go through all the fixtures. There's always one, at least one, you just didn't see coming. And this week, I think it has to go to Bristol City, who put 4 past Fulham. They've just really changed it around. Fulham. They started so well, got the opening day win over Newcastle. Now they are sinking. They're down to 13th now, 2 defeats this season, but 4 draws. They just can't seem to put teams away, and to lose 4-0 to Bristol City is a bit of an embarrassing result in all honesty. But obviously Tammy Abraham has been making the headlines this week because the media is starting to pick up on his incredible conversion rate. I don't remember the stat offhand now, what his current standings are, but I know in his first 7 shots that he had for Bristol City this season, 6 of them were goals. So very, very good striker. He's on loan from Chelsea, so expect him to be sold off in a year or two's time, but he's doing absolutely fantastically for Bristol City. And if you need someone as your anytime goal scorer for any of your next few weeks, Tammy Abraham is the name to remember. Leeds United getting a 1-0 win over Ipswich. Things starting to turn around maybe for Leeds now. It was obviously a lot of pressure on Gary Monk, but he's now got Leeds up to 12th. Seems to be a bit rosy for them now. 3 wins on the spin. Very good 3-1 win for Wolverhampton Wanderers over Brentford. Sheffield Wednesday coming back from 2-1, or coming back from 1-0 I should say, to win 2-1 over Nottingham Forest. If you haven't seen the goals from that game, I'd highly recommend watching the second goal for Sheffield Wednesday. I think it was Kieran Lee that got it. It's a incredible little move, very tightly worked, but the finish from Kieran Lee is so deft and tricky. It's a lovely watch. Norwich now move top of the Championship with a 3-1 win at home to Burton Albion. I still don't see past Norwich. I think they've got a better chance of going up than Newcastle do, in my personal opinion. They're just so efficient, they know the league, and they've started so well. That's 4 wins on the bounce now for them. And I think the biggest story from the Championship this week came at Derby. Now, Derby have been rotten. They've been absolutely awful. They are now currently 22nd. They are in the relegation zone. And they finally got a home goal in their game against Blackburn Rovers. Absolutely fantastic for them. It's been, I can't remember how many minutes now, but it's been so long since they got a home goal. They went 1-0 up. They held that lead for less than a minute. And then they held that draw for less than 3 minutes because Blackburn turned it round to win 2-1 all in 5 minutes. Incredible downing tools moment from Derby. It just couldn't go wrong from there, could it? But it did. I can't understand it. It's amazing how badly they're doing at the moment under a manager that I rate at the Championship level, but almost like he's just come in and tried to change it too much, Nigel Pearson. As if he's tried to go too defensive with Derby, and it's completely nullified them up front, maybe. But strange result, strange story. One that will really damage Derby fans and puts a lot of pressure on Nigel Pearson now as we head into a very clustered week for the Championship and the rest of the EFL because we have midweek fixtures as well. So if they go into the international break and they're in the relegation zone, then there could be a managerial change there because that is just not good enough for Derby County. The other thing to say about that Derby County game before we round up is that if you haven't seen the video, which Sky Sports have published, especially on their Facebook page, go and check it out. The halftime entertainment at Derby County, which featured a giant trout walking onto the pitch and swallowing one of the goalkeepers after getting into a punch-up with him, and then spinning the goalkeeper back out in only his underwear and boots. I'd highly recommend it. It's completely bizarre, and I don't know what it's doing at a half-time show in England, but well worth a watch.
I will look out for that because that sounds mental, which is always good, always fun. And now I did see the story about the Derby home record. I did see that. That was quite bizarre. And I caught a little bit of the Newcastle game in the evening as well. And as you say, Championship is fun. It is fun, people. If you haven't watched Championship football, definitely do. And just before we do wrap up, I want to ask you two things. One, Oliver Burke. First goal for Red Bull Leipzig, today, or RB Leipzig as we're supposed to call them. Lovely finish. You ran off patting the badge like he'd been there for years. I love that. So he's doing well. We're happy about that, and we like the Burke. We're
loving Ollie Burke.
Yes, we're loving the Burke. So, and the other thing I just want to quickly ask you is, you said there's midweek fixtures this week coming. Any of them that particularly stand out that you will be keeping across that any of our listeners can maybe check out?
The immediate one is Newcastle Norwich. I'm not sure if that's on TV, but that's going to be a very big moment for Norwich. So like I say, I think they're more ready to come back up than Newcastle are. I think they've got a much better chance this season of coming back up than Newcastle do. So it will be a very good acid test. That's the Wednesday night fixture, I should say, Newcastle and Norwich, but very, very important game for both sides. I wouldn't like to call that if I had to. I'd sit on the fence and say draw, but two sides that could very easily beat each other, and especially in this Championship where the games come so thick and so fast where you just can't keep hold of your legs anymore. So very, very important fixture in midweek. Aside from that, I look around Barnsley, Aston Villa. Barnsley have had a fantastic start to the season, and Aston Villa have just been awful. So many draws for Aston Villa. I think it's 6 now. So that's probably a big fixture to look out for. If you're looking for one near the bottom, then Cardiff versus Derby could be a very interesting one as well. I should say Ricky Lambert got his first 2 goals for Cardiff City over the weekend, which was obviously a nice moment for me. But if he can carry that on into Derby and put pressure on Nigel Pearson, like I said, I just don't get it. I just don't get what's happened to Derby. I can't figure them out. But incredible start they've had. 3 goals scored, 9 conceded. 1 win in the bottom 3. If they lose to Cardiff, then huge pressure is going to be put on Nigel Pearson then.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I know for a fact, I can tell you my good friend Natalie Dean, my Sheffield Wednesday fan, supporting friend. She's very happy with how things are going Sheffield Wednesday wise, and I think I might have even convinced her to come on and do a pod with us at some point, so you can talk Championship to your heart's content. So we'll have to try and fix up a date for that, maybe during the international break or something. We can have a natter.
I should also say, since you did ask me, Ollie Burke, love it. Loving it. I think he came on, got an assist on his first game. Now he's scored his first goal. He already looks so composed in Germany from what I've seen of him. It's so nice to see him go out there and play so well. But there's a lot of people now on Twitter that started watching him. Oh wow, this kid's really good. Yeah, I know. We all know, don't we?
It's so hard not to be smug, isn't it? I do that all the time. Being a football
hipster, you know as well. You can go on Twitter, you can look at them, and you say, "Yeah, I already knew that."
Yeah, I already know exactly. Yeah, I do it all the time. Last year, the classic was Renato Sanchez.
Yeah.
I was watching the kid for Benfica for 6 months, going, "This guy's going to be really good." And I'm now seeing it with Rafael Guerreiro at Dortmund. I think he scored 3 and assisted 6 in his first 5 games for Dortmund, and everyone's going, "Oh, that Guerreiro, he's quite good, isn't he?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's been good for quite a while." It's so hard not to be smug, but
I don't get the chance to do it a lot in the Championship because we don't have a lot of young talent coming through, but I'm glad I've given our listeners one that they can go to their friends and say, "Yeah, I knew about him. Yeah, and then 4 weeks."
And to be fair, you did, I was going to say, you did finger, I didn't mean it quite like that. You did point out the lad at Wolves, whose name escapes me, the big lanky fullback. What's his name? Yes, I still think he's going to be something pretty special. So I think what we'll have to do is when we do a special, which we will do probably maybe during the next international break, where we have a little look at the Championship so far. I think maybe we will have to, between you and I, maybe dig out some facts and stats and pull out 3 or 4 names to keep an eye on this year, and see where it ends up at the end of the season. See if we got it bang on or if we were completely clueless, because it's always fun, isn't it, to do that? So
yeah, until you get it wrong.
Until you get it wrong, yeah, absolutely. Right, okay. We will leave it there then. We'll be back, as I said, on a Sunday next week to cover all of the games. We might have Ross with us on Thursday. We're not sure yet because John is absent from the Satchel, so we might even have a bit of Saints European news if we're very lucky, depending on scheduling. Yes, of course, we will be across all the action as well. So do give us your feedback. We obviously didn't get to listeners' questions tonight because we haven't asked any, because we're recording a bit earlier. If you do have a question that involves English football, just ping it to us. You can follow us at the FH Podcast. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, on iTunes, and brand new, you can now subscribe to us on SoundCloud. Yes, we have got SoundCloud. It's up and running now. It's ready to rock. You can subscribe and listen to us on SoundCloud now, and we hope that has given you an opportunity to do so. We also want to say a big thanks to all the new followers we've had. We're getting lots of new people from new clubs following us and giving us their feedback. So thank you very much for that. Right, okay, that's it from us then. Ross, thank you as always for your time, and once again, a happy 3-0 weekend for you.
Happy 3-0 to you too.
Oh, splendid. It's like Christmas, boys and girls. We have been the Football Hipsters. This has been the English Breakfast Podcast. Keep sending in your tweets and your thoughts. We'll be back with you next Sunday. Enjoy your football. We'll speak to you then.